Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 76th Hunger Games.
Hello and welcome again to another edition and the final video concerning the Hunger Games trilogy as I take a look at both Mockingjay Part 1 and 2. Mockingjay is the final book in the Hunger Games trilogy. It was written by Suzanne Collins and published by Scholastic Press in 2010. Mockingjay Part 1 and 2 were both directed by Francis Lawrence, with Part 1 premiering on November 21st, 2014, and Part 2 premiering on November 20th, 2015. So did these movies get it right? Probably about 85%, surprisingly. Most of what was left out were small details that would have just added to the overall length of the movies. So what was omitted or changed? The opening of Part 1 differs from the book in that we first get an intimate look at the state of Katniss's recovery. The book opens with her already exploring the ruins of District 12 for the first time. In both movies, Effie is in 13 as opposed to being held captive in the capital. She takes the place of Fulvia, who is Plutarch's assistant, and the prep team, eliminating the need for 4 actors while also giving her the importance to Katniss that she has had so far, at least in the films. Much of Katniss hiding around 13 gets omitted, and it is the only other time in the movies that the baby plot is mentioned. There was more between Katniss and Gale when they were exploring District 12 with Cressida and her team. A big change in the movies is when the soldiers go to free the prisoners from the capital. In the book, Katniss and Finnick spend the time together trying to keep each other distracted after Finnick films his propos. At no point in the book do we see or have any inclination of what's going on with the soldiers. In the film, we actually see the team retrieving the prisoners as Finnick films his propos live. There's also the exchange between Katniss and Snow when the feed gets cut off. Deli Cartwright's character is omitted. She is replaced with Prim in the first interaction between Peeta and someone from 12. The other big omission is Johanna and Katniss training so they can go to the capital. Instead, Johanna stays behind as Katniss sneaks aboard a hovercraft in Part 2. Katniss's healing after the bombing is shortened, and Plutarch says goodbye in a letter rather than person. This may have something to do with the fact that Philip Seymour Hoffman had already passed by this point. I don't know. I don't know the timeline of filming for this movie. The ending and epilogue do have some changes, but nothing that is integral to the plot by this point. Again, it's a lot of small details. In the book, we get Gale's confession of when he started liking Katniss, the explanation of panem et circenses, which means bread and circuses in Latin. Basically, it was a popular saying in Rome, which is, always an excellent political system to base yours off of. It meant if you feed and entertain the masses, they'll overlook just about anything, which is very true and very apropos even now. I was sad to see that the wedding cake Peeta decorated was left out, and you also miss out on Katniss and Haymitch fighting and then Katniss devolving once more. For me, a very missed part, and I don't have many of these regrets for these movies, but for this one I did. It was how impactful Finnick's death was in the book. As Katniss even says, she sees Finnick's life flash before her eyes. But since we're not filming these movies from Katniss's point of view, it is simply a blow-by-blow, which may not be apropos for this, but it is what happens. The other big changes came in the form of character personalities, and I think this truly lends itself a lot to the actors for these films. The character of B.T., who is played by Jeffrey Wright, he still has the desire to see the capital taken down, but he no longer invests in the bloodthirsty character aspect he has in the book. There is a sort of detachment B.T. has in the book that he doesn't have in the movies, which is integral to these character changes. It happens for all these characters, and I'll explain why. It also makes me want to watch Westworld. There's a bonus Ben Barnes in it, but Jeffrey Wright really is the one that makes me want to watch Westworld. The character of Gale, he doesn't change a humongous whole lot, and I think, again, this lends itself to Liam's Hemsworth. He is still angry, and rightfully so, at the Capitol, but he seems to actually weigh the good and the bad of his decisions, as opposed to completely disregarding the cost of human life. In the book, he seemed perfectly gung-ho to take down the Capitol and any of its allies, regardless of who was going to get hurt in the end, because of how long him and District 12 had been hurt. But I do feel like in the movies, Liam gives these decisions the weight that they are due. He still makes hard decisions because he is angry and he has a right to be angry. But he at least is not knee-jerk, let's destroy everything. Plutarch. He had a big change. In the book, he is a head game maker through and through, even in 13. Everything he does is for entertainment value, and what would, in our reality, probably get him higher ratings on TV. The film, probably again, because of Philip Seymour Hoffman, he is much more subdued. But he is still there behind the scenes, pushing and pulling the pieces and actors into their respective places. Effie. I've gone over her before, but I'll go over her again. Since in the book she doesn't show up until the very end, her role in the movies is expanded since she ends up in 13. Because of that, her capital persona becomes much more subdued, although she does use it to the benefit of the rebellion when she has to make Katniss into the Mockingjay. She also has the opportunity to see what the capital is inflicting on its citizens beyond her small world. Elizabeth Banks is able to bring a bit of a humility to Effie that she was generally lacking before. You saw some of it in Catching Fire, but it was directed towards Peeta and Katniss. In this movie, it's a lot more of her understanding what people beyond her small world have gone through. And then President Coin. Julianne Moore plays her in the movie as much more soft-spoken and a almost human leader in District 13. In the book, she is a military leader, which is understandable, but because of the way Moore plays her, her motivations are much more duplicitous, and it becomes especially apparent when she announces her intention to be quote-unquote interim president in their quote-unquote ceremonial Hunger Games. I think overall, Mockingjay Part 1 and 2 got the best performance out of their actors because there seemed to be a real weight behind their decisions to attack the Capitol or any of the districts still in league with them. I think there was a shift so that the characters had to understand the inevitable casualty that came with war, i.e. when innocents are killed. That's not to say that they wouldn't make the hard choice, but they truly felt awful for the loss of the innocent life in the aftermath. That is my look at Mockingjay, the book, and then comparing it to Mockingjay Part 1 and Part 2, the movies. Do I feel like it needed to be 2 movies? Considering how little they actually left out, yes. However, I will say that the scene where Katniss is watching the soldiers rescue the victors from the training center did drag on a little bit. But that was about the only place where it dragged for me. The fight in the Capitol basically stayed the same with very minor details, mostly dealing with Katniss's team and who died when and of what. But otherwise it stayed the same. They stuck pretty close to the book. There were like 2 major changes, some personality changes that I think came down to the acting and the choices of the actors. But otherwise, all they left out were small details that in writing are good, in a film are unnecessary. And since, again, and I cannot stress this enough, fighting scenes take up a lot of time. So leave a comment down below. Tell me if you think Mockingjay needed to be 2 movies. Did you like the movies? Do you like them better than the book? Do you like the book better? I want to know why and I want to know your reasons. So I hope y'all enjoyed, and I will see you next time.